This is another video of the Spring framework. In this video, we'll discuss Spring AOP with examples. AOP complements OOPs in the sense that it also provides modularity. But in aspect-oriented programming, the key modularity term is aspect rather than class. So in Spring AOP, we'll discuss these following examples: logging, profiling. We'll see how we can do the logging through the AOP, and profiling, tracing, transaction management, security management. So these are the following examples that we can achieve through Spring AOP. But why we use Spring AOP? If you see that this diagram, we have different services, and in all services we are doing the logging. This is before AOP, and what we can do after AOP. We can create a separate centralized class, and we can do all the logging for all these services there, for all these service classes. So in this video, I'm going to take a simple example of a task management project. In task management project, we'll see how we can real time we can use the AOP. So let's start it. To start with AOP, I've added a sample project here. In this project, we can see this all the packages are there, and if we open any one of the class, like let's open task controller. In the task controller, we are using the dependency task service. If we open task service, we have these methods, all the CRUD operations. To run this application, let's go to run as Spring Boot app. Once this application is up in your local, you can use this URL to open the Swagger in your browser, and we have a task tag. In task tag, there are multiple operations. If we see the get task, this is a response from the get task. Post task can be used to create a new task in the database. Similarly, we have other operations like delete and put. Now let's switch back to our code. Now we are going to implement the AOP in this project. Before starting with the AOP, you have to ensure that you have added the dependency in the pom.xml. This is the dependency that we need to add in the pom.xml. After adding this dependency, let's come to these packages. In this package, we have one task controller class. Task controller class is connected with task service. If we see the implementation of task service class, so if you see here in the controller and as well as in the service, there are no logging statements, and there are no any try catch handling has been implemented in this project. So with AOP, the first thing that we will do, we'll add the logging support in that task controller and for the task service, and we will try to catch the global exceptional handling. So we'll add an exceptional handler for this project. There is one more thing that we do generally, like to profiling the methods, how much time the method is taking whenever we call to the controller. So we'll start the time and we record the end time, how much the time service is taking. So that we also achieve through AOP. So let's create a new class here by going to new and class. I'll give it name here aspect config, and I will add in the package AOP. The first thing that we need to do is to make this class as an aspect. We'll use as add aspect annotation, and also we'll annotate this as a configuration. In this aspect class, we'll add the advice. So let's see what are the AOP concepts. Next, we are going to talk about AOP concepts. There are various concepts are present in AOP. Some of I have listed down here. Aspect we already use when we make a class aspect where we can add different cross-cutting concern. A joint point, a point during the execution of a program, we'll see that advice, point cut, and introduction, interceptor, all are the other concepts about the AOP. So we'll see all this in the project. So let's start with that. We'll see some of the advice how it will be executed in our code. First we'll try with the logging. So we need to check the logging, and then we need to check exception handling, and we need to check the time taken. So these three tasks will do through the AOP. First is to check the logging statements. If you see in the classes, generally we do whenever we work on any project, we log some logging statements. So let's try it out some logging statement here. First we'll create a logging statement logger object here. To create a logger object, you can do it like this: log factory dot get logger, and we'll give the name of that class aspect config dot class. Okay, and here we do public void log statement. First we'll try the before advice. Here we'll use join point. Join point is nothing, it's basically the execution of a code in the in a method in any class. And here we'll give a before advice. Now this is the annotation for the before advice. In this annotation, let's import this one, attribute value. Here we'll give execution, the join point where we need to execute this join point, and here we'll give star. We'll give the path of the classes where we need to run this, and that should be in API. So in API we have all the controllers. Let's give it start dot in the method, and in the method we need to run the code. And here we'll give logger log.info, and let's print it out here, the join point executing join point. Let's run this application. So this application is running on port 8080. Let's open in the browser. So here we'll try the get task. Now get task, when we'll try it out it here, it will call the controller. In the API class we have task controller. So let's try it out. Now let's go to the our code. Now if you see here, it's printing one logging statement executing get all task. Get all task in the task controller we are using to get all the tasks. So we don't need to now add logging statement here or anywhere in this class. All the logging statement will automatically execute from the aspect config class. So this before advice is whenever the method has to execute, this logging statement will be recorded in the logs. And same way if we want to try other like an after advice, so here we'll give annotation at after, and we'll give complete execution of the join point. And let's try this. Okay, we don't need to give anything. Here we'll record the join point. Let's relaunch this application. Now we'll try again this method, this operation. Let's try it out. So we are getting blank response, blank array. Now if we see here, it's first executing the get all task. This is before advice that we have gave here, and after the execution of the method into the after advice, it's printing complete execution of this method. So this is a before and after advice. In this way we can log the logging statements. Now we'll try the exception handling. To go with the exception handling, we'll create our custom exception class first. So let's do that. Let's add a new class here for the exception handler. Task exception. I'm giving it name task exception in the package app.handler. In task exception class, I'm going to add two fields. One is for message and one we need status code, HTTP status, and let's extend this as the runtime exception. Now we'll create here some getter and setters. Let's add constructor also to initialize the object for the fields. One constructor we have added for both the fields, and let's add one for only message if we don't need to pass status code. Let's do this. Okay, so this is the task exception class that I've created here. So whenever any exception would come in this project, or we are going to throw any exception, then we'll throw task exception. Let's see this how we can use. In the delete task in task service impl, we are throwing here not found exception. So now I'm going to throw here task exception with status code HTTP status not found, and the message task not found. Now in our aspect config class, we'll use one more advice at around. This both two are we did for the logging of the controller methods, and let's add here one for the service at around. In the value, now here we'll pass the another package, that is our services package, and here we'll give task handler. Before and after advice only run once when the method enters and when the method has finished the execution, but the around advice will be execute until the method is not finished. So that's because we have chosen this around advice to catch the try catch exceptions. So we'll return here an object, and we'll not use the join point here, we'll use proceeding join point. With the proceeding join point we can execute that method, we can continue the running of that method. So let's declare this join point. Now here we'll add a try catch, and here I'll return exception e. In this task handler will do the object and with join point will proceed. This needs to be throwable, so let's add here, and we'll give this here note. First we'll give task exception, and let's add here return. So if no any exception, then we will return here return object. Otherwise we'll print here log info status code. Log.info message and here we'll give e.getMessage. And here we'll return null because we already returning object here. Let's again restart this application. Let's try delete task. I'm going to here pass any random ID and try it out. Now if we go in the code, so if you see here, it's first going executing this task, and after that the exception comes, task exception status code 404, and then after that task exception message task not found, then it completed the execution of the task. Once we print the exception log here, then we can return it with throw new response status exception. We can use this e.getHTTP status. Here we'll print e.getMessage. So whenever we'll get task exception in the services classes, we'll print the log statements and then return with the response status exception, the status code and the message. Let's write it out in the Swagger. Now I'm going to try it out. Now if you see here, the response code is 404. Earlier it was 200 only. So let's create one object now. Here we'll pass this JSON data and we'll give it here create REST API, and date we don't need, start date also we make it empty, and REST API. Try it out. So the task is created with ID 1. Let's try to get it. Set it to JSON. Try it out. We are getting the task with ID 1. Now let's try to delete this task. If we pass any incorrect ID, then we'll get the 404 error. But if we pass the correct ID like 1, then we try it out and we're getting response code 200. So this is the way we catch the exceptional exceptions and we throw the proper response. Now next we are going to see the time tracking, how we can track the time taken by the method execution. So for that I am going to use the around advice. For same, let's create a new method here and we'll give it name time tracker. Will run in the API package for the controllers, and here what we'll do, let's write long start time system dot current time in this, and when the execution will complete, we'll give here long time taken minus start time. And then we'll print log dot info time taken by is. First we'll pass the joint point here, and then we'll print time taken. Okay, so here that will give millisecond time, and after that we'll calculate the difference of the time, and then we'll print it here. Let's try it out. We'll restart the application. Now when we'll call this to get all the tasks, let's check out it, try it out. And now if we see the logs, so first it's going executing, complete execution, and time taken. So the time taken by this method is 179 millisecond, or it's, we can say it's of 1.1 second. This is all about the AOP. We have seen how we can achieve logging from the AOP, exception handling, and at the last we have discussed the time taken. You can check the complete code on the GitHub. I will provide the link in the description of video. Thank you for watching this video. If you are new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button.